So 6 days ago now, penultimate Grand Prix of the campaign in Portimao over on Portugal's Algarve coast. It was Marco Bezzecchi who got the drop on the field from pole position, and the Aprilia star never looked back. We were expecting another challenge as it was in the sprint from Alex Marquez and Pedro Acosta. They did not have the front-running pace, although they were able to fight it out for second and third. Fermin Aldeguer had work to do coming from 11th on the grid. That was his close call with Brad Binder in the early part of the Grand Prix. But Marco Bezzecchi, who's having a phenomenal second half to his maiden season for the Noali factory. Pole position, sprint podium and Grand Prix win last time out in Portugal. Well, he's all set for another double podium here this weekend in Valencia. He's the Italian rider just a couple of days outside of his 27th birthday. Well, it has been a brilliant belated birthday celebration so far here at the Riccardo Tormo circuit for Marco Bezzecchi, because he's the first Aprilia rider ever to claim back-to-back pole positions in MotoGP. First time Bezzecchi is lining up from the head of the grid in successive races since Assen and Silverstone 2.5 years ago. What a rich vein of form the combination of Bezzecchi and the RSGP Aprilia have found in the latter stages of 2025. It's almost a given, it seems now. It was almost a given pre this Valencia Grand Prix weekend that Bezzecchi was going to complete third place overall in the championship, 35 points clear of his great friend and fellow trash talker Pecco Bagnaia in that battle for third place. Well, it's been brilliant so far this weekend in Valencia for Bezzecchi, taking that stunning pole position this morning. Another all-time lap record went in Q2, our final Q2 of 2025. A 128.809 has put Bez on pole. Pecco Bagnaia's faint and very slender hopes of wrestling third place away from Bezzecchi in this season finale, while they pretty much evaporated after his factory Ducati expired this morning in Q1. Bezzecchi on pole, Pecco Bagnaia way down in 16th place. Alex Marquez and Fabio Di Gianantonio complete your front row. Pair of Ducatis on the front row once again here in Valencia. 14th front row start of the season for Alex, which means he will end 2025 with the most front rows of the season, and for just the third time this year and the fifth time in his MotoGP career, Fabio Di Gianantonio is on the front row of the grid. Bit of a score to settle for Digia as well here, of course, in Valencia. In the Grand Prix here 2 years ago, thought he'd taken a very hard-fought and deserved podium, but a post-race tyre pressure infringement saw him bumped out of the top three. Nobody could bump him off the top three in qualifying this morning. So Bezzecchi, Alex Marquez and Di Gianantonio is your front row. Pedro Acosta was fastest on Friday. Keep an eye on Acosta as he looks to end his long winless streak in MotoGP from 5th place. So we're all set, the stage is set. Sadly the sunshine has disappeared, but it's still a rather mild sprint Saturday here in Valencia. In the company of Matt Burton, Lewis Sutterby in the commentary box, Jack Appleyard down in pit lane. 2025 is ending very well, Lewis, as far as Aprilia and Marco Bezzecchi are concerned. Back-to-back poles, brilliant performance once again by the Italian. He's laid down the marker, he's the rider to beat once again.
Certainly is. It's super close though on the grid, looking at the top 5 who are all within a 1/10 of a second, as 6 of them all got themselves into the 128s in what was a fantastic final Q2 of the season late this morning. Bezzecchi by 26 thousandths of a second from Alex Marquez, who in turn was 28 thousandths ahead of Fabio Di Gianantonio, who was then 14 thousandths ahead of Raul Fernandez, who was then 38 thousandths ahead of Pedro Acosta. So all 5 of those riders will feel they've got the pace to fight at the front of this sprint. The last sprint of 2025 in Portimao was an absolute belter. Will the next one and the finale for our Saturday action go one better?
Hasn't been completely plain sailing this weekend so far for Bezzecchi. He was caught out yesterday afternoon early on with a crash at turn 4, although he did rebound brilliantly to finish in second place at 14th MotoGP pole position for Aprilia. 9th for Bezzecchi in his Premier Class career. Aprilia have never had so many poles in a single season in MotoGP. Bezzecchi's taken 5 of the last 10. If this sort of form carries on into 2026, and neutrals will be hoping so, and certainly Aprilia will be. You do get the impression, the distinct impression, that Bezzecchi, Jorge Martin when fully fit, and if that Aprilia does continue to make progress, well, Ducati's unrivaled domination of MotoGP could come under its biggest threat for quite some time.
And a threat this afternoon surely comes from this man, Pedro Acosta, who is coming to Valencia this weekend for one thing and one thing only, and that is a win. Will today finally see him taste sprint success for the first time, who did everything but win last Saturday in the Portimao sprint when he threw haymaker after haymaker in the direction of Alex Marquez, ultimately finishing in the silver medal position in second. Yeah, fifth on the grid. That's probably about on the limit in terms of where you can win from here in Valencia, but we know that KTM is a super fast starter, and Pedro Acosta will be going on the attack from the very start.
It's a long run down to that first corner as well. Plenty of time for Acosta to click through the gearbox on that KTM and make up some places. He's used to starting on the middle of that second row of the grid, isn't he, the 21-year-old Spaniard? He's qualified fifth in 4 of the last 5 Grand Prix. And if he's looking for omens, if he's looking for a bit of inspiration, since 2002, the start of the 4-stroke era, I told you this morning, there's been only 4 wins off the front row here in Valencia. Guess where they've all come from? 5th place, Marc Marquez 2014, Danny Pedrosa 2017, Joan Mir 2020 and Alex Rins 2022. Over to you, Pedro Acosta. Brilliant to be back at the Ricardo Tormo circuit in Valencia. A wonderful circuit, a wonderful atmosphere, a wonderful city. We've been welcomed back with open arms. Of course, we were intending and hoping to come here to complete the 2024 MotoGP World Championship before the floods devastated this region in November last year. It's fantastic to be back, to see the city is returning to some semblance of normality. Anything but normal 2025 has been so far for Pecco Bagnaia, and we've said it so many times, Lewis, over the last few weeks. Can it get any worse? Can he get him any more of a whole Pecco Bagnaia? Well, he can. 16th on the grid, and unfortunately he was undone by a Ducati technical issue, and he was very, very frustrated, wasn't he?
Yeah, not a lot Pecco Bagnaia could have done about that earlier on today, because he was P2, as you mentioned, at the point that the bike stopped on him. Pecco Bagnaia had to ride a scooter back to pit lane and just watch himself tumble down the Q1 leaderboard all the way back to 6th place, which became 16th. And you have to say that any slim hopes he had of maintaining fight for 3rd in the World Championship into tomorrow's 27-lap Grand Prix Valencia are surely gone now, barring the mother of all miracles in the next 13 laps.
It is not just Bezzecchi who's shining late on in this 2025 campaign for Aprilia, is it? Raul Fernandez, who was our 7th different winner of 2025 recently on our flyaway tour over at Phillip Island in the Australian Grand Prix. Well, don't discount Fernandez as well from being in the hunt for a sprint and Grand Prix podium. 40 racing laps to come your way in the next 24 hours or so here in Valencia to cap off a 2025 season which is fair to say did not go anywhere near according to plan for the rider we just saw on screen. Jorge Martin, great to welcome him back into the action after yet another lengthy injury layoff. This is going to be Martin's first competitive action since he lasted at 1 corner at the Japanese Grand Prix sprints in late September. Of course, he went charging into his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. Another serious injury to his right shoulder. Martin back, and he's been impressively quick actually, 17th on the standings. He was less than 500ths of a second behind Pecco Bagnaia. Of course, the last time we raced in Valencia in 2023, those two a lot higher up the grid, and there was a lot higher stakes than there was for the pair of them here in 2025. Martin, 17th on the grid.
Just good to see him back and competing again, isn't it? As he, I guess, puts the building blocks in place now for what he hopes is an injury-free 2026, where we'll be hoping, based on the evidence of his teammate, that he can fight for a 2nd MotoGP championship. Aprilia continuing to take enormous steps in the right direction. And can they achieve back-to-back victories here this weekend? Of course, that will be answered tomorrow. Bezzecchi has enjoyed plenty of sprint success in the second half of this season. Gold medals in Misano, in Indonesia, and in Australia. Can he also add Valencia to that? If he does, then 3rd in the World Championship is conclusively his.
For the 2nd time in 3 years on 2 different motorcycles as well, Marco Bezzecchi. He really has stepped up this year. Could he handle the pressure of being a factory rider? Could he steer development? Well, we've had our emphatic answer, haven't we? Particularly in the second half of the campaign. Never has an Aprilia rider won back-to-back races in MotoGP. Great to see Fabio Di Gianantonio after what's been a roller coaster campaign for him on the Ducati GP25. A 3rd front row start of the season for Digi, as we look at 5-time world champion Jorge Lorenzo, a legend on the grid. And let's get the thoughts of VR46 boss Pablo Nieto, who joins Jack. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody. everybody at home. It has overcast ever so slightly here in Valencia. I don't think there's any threat of rain, but it's certainly cooler than we've had throughout the weekend. As the guys were saying, Pablo, when it's been good, it's been very good for Fabio this year. When he's had his struggles, he really has had his struggles. So to be on the front row is, I imagine, a really positive sign of how competitive he is here.
Yeah, it is. It's very important for us, no? Always when you start in the front row, it's very important because in the end you have to focus on the race. It's true that it's very, very important to make a very good start, first laps. We have to take care a little bit about corner number 4. It's the first right corner, and now we check the temperature of the track, and it's 20 degrees. It's a little bit under limit, but we have to try to push to warm up the tire.
Frankie's pace is fantastic, as good as anybody. How much of a missed opportunity was it in qualifying, and how much work has he got to do from the third row?
Yeah, that's very difficult always, no? I think the limit always is try to be in the second row, no? When you are in the third row, you have to take some risk. It's important that the first lap you try to make some overtakes, but like you say, no, he has very good rhythm, very good pace, so he can make also a very good race.
Thanks, Pablo. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Pablo Nieto. Good point made by Jack, because Frankie Morbidelli has had a very strong Valencian Grand Prix so far. He was third fastest at the end of play yesterday. Last weekend in Portimao was the first Grand Prix all season when he's raced in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. Of course, he missed the Grand Prix in Germany, was when Frankie did not score a point. Marco Bezzecchi then on pole position at 1:28.809, all-time lap record coming from the Italian. Pretty much anywhere finishing the points this afternoon, and he's got third place in the championship locked and loaded. Luca Marini, well, he's going to be frustrated to just miss out once again on a direct place into Q2. 3 Grand Prix in a row now. Marini has found himself the odd one out at the end of Q1. 13th he's started the last 3 Grand Prix, and around this notoriously hard to overtake, hard to pass Valencia circuit, he's kind of already compromised his chances of getting anywhere near that podium battle, you feel?
Yeah, we've mentioned already in the weekend the stakes for Honda this weekend as they look to lift themselves up a level and a tier in concessions. They're currently in rank D, which gives them the same benefits, if you want to call it that, as Yamaha. If Honda score 9 points overall this weekend with their leading rider, then that would move them up into rank C, which would drop the engine development. They would drop an aero upgrade through the season, and their race riders wouldn't be able to test in between Grand Prix. So 9 points is what Honda need. That's for their first rider across the checkered flag, both today and tomorrow. 9 points would be basically second place this afternoon, which might be a tall order, but they could take a step towards boosting their concessions standings at the end of this year.
Just saw Aprilia boss Massimo Rivola. He is convinced, he has no doubt, and why would he, given the Nuali factory's brilliant second half of the campaign, that they will be able to take the fight to Marc Marquez and to Ducati next year. Let's go and hear, though, from a proper legend in this part of the world, a global superstar, wasn't he, back in the day? Jorge Lorenzo with Jack.
Yeah, MotoGP Hall of Famer Jorge Lorenzo with me, of course, 10 years on from that memorable Valencia 2015 weekend. I spoke to you about that earlier. Let's focus on what's going to happen right now, Jorge. Marco on pole, Alex in second, Pedro looking super fast, but from the second row, how do you think this one's going to play out?
Yeah, looks like after the injury of the strongest, Marc Marquez, Bezzecchi came a little bit stronger, Alex stayed strong as all the championship, and Pedro came very strong the last 5 races. So KTM is not the best bike for time attack. So I expected him in pole position or second place, but finally he struggled and started in second grid. So it's not good for the start. Bezzecchi and Aprilia form a duo very strong. So let's see. I think, yeah, these 3, Bezzecchi, Alex and Pedro, are the favorites.
What are the important things if you want to win around Valencia? What do you have to do right?
Well, I think it's not an easy track to overtake, so starting in pole position and arrive first in the first corner is very important. So that's, I think, the strategy that Bezzecchi is willing to do and he prefer. But of course, Alex and Pedro, starting from behind, he will go the maximum to be, for the first time, winner of MotoGP. I think Pedro have great options to do it today and also tomorrow.
Thanks, Jorge. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yeah, always great to hear the thoughts of Jorge Lorenzo. He was a master around this Ricardo Tormo circuit. 4 victories in MotoGP here, as some of our potential MotoGP stars of the future here for the Moto Mini Champions prize giving ceremony. Some event that was here on the build-up to this Valencian Grand Prix. A very international flavour, a Polish and Chinese victors. FIM President George Villegas has the honours of handing over the medals.
Yeah, I'll give this one a go. Witold Dariusz Kupczynski, the winner of the 160cc class, and China's Shengbo Sun. As you can see there on screens, the 190cc Moto Mini World Champion. It was a spectacular day's racing too at the nearby kart circuit, which is just on the outside of Turn 1.
Yeah, those young stars, potential stars of the future, had the pleasure of joining Marco Bezzecchi, Pedro Acosta and Pecco Bagnaia in the pre-event press conference. But what does it mean to the Valencian community to have MotoGP back? Well, that's what it means. We've got a Mexican wave going on. Of course, almost €2 million was raised as part of the relief fund by the MotoGP community, who stood together with the Valencian community. Toprak Razgatlioglu. Not long, folks, not long at all before we will see him for the first time in public on board the Pramac Yamaha YZR M1, a full-time entrance into MotoGP next year. He'll be teammates to Aussie Jack Miller, who's had a pretty good weekend actually so far. The 30-year-old from Townsville Down Under. 9th time this year that Jack's found himself inside the top 10. Jack looks really under pressure and stressed down there, doesn't he, on the grid? Always got a big smile on his face, always looking super relaxed is Jack. The last time he led a Grand Prix was right here in Valencia back in 2023, where it all unravelled a little bit late on as the temperature dropped for KTM. Brad Binder was also leading that race. Will Raul Fernandez be a leader? 4th place on the grid. Well, Pedro Acosta, we've posed this question so frequently, haven't we, since the summer break, as Acosta and KTM have grown in stature together. It's today the day that he'll break his duck in MotoGP. Let's get a word with his crew chief, Paul Trevathan.
Yeah, that's the big question. Paul was just in a big throng of technicians here, including a gentleman from Michelin. It feels like tyre choice going to be critical in this one. These temperatures as cold as we've had all weekend.
Yeah, no, to be honest, the biggest issue is maybe the front. The rear is pretty sorted, so it's just the front. You know, there's a window where everything works a bit better, but the problem is, there's only really one choice, but it's just about the safety and about being smart. So I think we've got it sorted, so we just have to go and see what happens.
For Pedro in particular, his pace looks great. Obviously qualifying not exactly as you would have wanted, but can he still do the business from the second row? Yeah, for sure. You know, I think it's a long straight. We've been known to be good starters, and I think we're going to be okay there. You know, qualifying's qualifying. You know, everyone puts it on the line. To be honest, our ideal time was even the best, so we know we can do it. We've done it. We've shown in all the other sessions that we're up there, so it's just putting it all together now. Thanks, Paul. Good luck.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Pedro Acosta's crew chief, Paul Trevathan. They've done the homework, they've done the legwork then. Acosta, 5th place on the grid. Yeah, it's a shame that dazzling sunshine of this morning has completely deserted us, because it will clearly have an impact on grip levels, certainly in terms of managing temperature, as Paul Trevathan and a couple of others have mentioned already down on the grid to Jack. You're going to have to be really, really cautious, really careful early on as you're just waiting to build temperature in there. The right-hand side of the tyre in particular, turn 4 and turn 10. Yeah, you're going to just have to be pretty smart as to go through those couple of corners early on. Well, Alex Marquez is about to round off what has been a truly remarkable 2025 campaign from the front row of the grid for the 14th time. Never discount Fermin Aldeguet as well. He's always a charger. He's the 9th on the 3rd, but let's get the thoughts of Gresini boss Michele Massini.
Michele, 2nd on the grid for Alex. What's possible today?
I think it's possible to remain on the podium. Why not try to win? But our rivals are more, I think, they have something bit more, maybe the Aprilias or Pedro, but in a track where we struggle always a bit more compared to the others, so far is a really good weekend for us.
Do you think both Marco and Pedro on pace just have a little bit more at the moment than Alex?
For the sprint, I think yes, but we will see and hope to fight for the win.
Thanks, Michele. Good luck.
Fighting for the win has been commonplace, hasn't it, in 2025 so far for Alex Marquez throughout the whole of last year. Alex ended 2024 with 1 podium. 26 podiums he's had this year. What a massive step forward Alex has made. Galvanised, rejuvenated in some respects by the switch over to the Ducati GP24. It was the bike that he knew from the very first test moving into 2025 that he was going to be able to start winning in MotoGP. And the Marquez family, well, they've done an awful lot of winning, haven't they, in 2025. Great to see Marc Marquez, the new world champion, here on site for the prize-giving ceremony here in Valencia tomorrow. Unfortunately, Marc sidelined from this Grand Prix.
Let's head down to the grid then and get a word from the pole sitters camp. Marco Bezzecchi on pole, Massimo Rivola's with Jack.
Yeah, from speaking to a few people on the grid, Massimo, they're all indicating they think that Marco's the favourite for this one. Starting from pole position, how do you see the race playing out?
The race pace this morning was not too bad. I think Pedro has something more than us, possibly. We know Alex this year is in a very high level. So I think again the three of Portimao can generate quite a good battle. Digi normally is very good on the end at the end of the races. Okay, the sprint is short, but I think there will be a mix of tires even if it's a sprint. It's not granted that soft is the right tire, so a nice mix. Very interesting.
Should make it interesting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Aprilia boss Massimo Rivola. They have had their best MotoGP season in history, the Noali factory. Could it get even better? Could it be rounded off in style? Well, they've already got a pole position in the bag thanks to Bezzecchi. There's another sprint and Grand Prix victory beckoned. Some late words of encouragement there from Acosta's crew chief Paul Trevathan. Absolutely packed grandstands here for this Motul Grand Prix of the Valencian community. Expecting a crowd tomorrow, I'm told, of over 100,000 fans. So in the zone, ready, prepped. This is not alien territory anymore, is it, for the factory Aprilia team, and in particular Marco Bezzecchi. In the background you can see there the big mural, such an influence. Well, the reason why Marco Bezzecchi is on this grid was the influence of Valentino Rossi. It was, of course, here 4 long years ago now. Crikey, where does time go? 2021 was Valencian Grand Prix when Valentino Rossi bowed out after such an illustrious Grand Prix career. He'll be, I'm sure, tuning in at home to see if Marco Bezzecchi can cap off our final sprint Saturday of the season in perfect fashion with a pole position and a sprint victory. 6 days ago in Portimao, Massimo Riva, Aprilia boss, called him perfection over in Portugal. Hard front, soft rear tyre.
It's changed to the soft front tyre according to the latest bang-up-to-date information from Michelin.
Would be a risk. That hard front of these cool conditions now, it's hard to sort of describe to you back at home just how much
over
this
quite a lot.
Cloud cover, which kind of engulfed and swallowed up this Valencia circuit around about lunchtime. If you join us for the morning sessions, qualifying and practice, it was a glorious autumnal start to Sprint Saturday. And as you can see now on the grid, it's gone rather grey. Lots of riders then. There are changing tyres late on here. As soon as we have the bang-up-to-date latest information from Michelin in terms of what the pick is, everybody surely is going to be running the soft rear tyre. Will anybody be having a punt on the hard front? Has it just gone too cool for that prospect? 13 laps, just a reminder, is coming your way in this final sprint action of the season. Double the distance tomorrow, 27 laps to close out our longest Grand Prix campaign in history. 22 Grand Prix across 5 continents, across 18 countries. Next year, of course, there'll be a special return home in many respects, in particular for Diogo Moreira and for Frankie Morbidelli with his Brazilian roots. As part of the 2022 round 2026 campaign, will take us back to the South American nation.
Yeah, just to give you an idea on the track temperature, yesterday in practice, track temperature was up at 24 degrees. In qualifying earlier on today, and it's the same now for the sprint, track temperature is 6 degrees cooler than it was. And Matt mentioned earlier on, last time he raced here in 2023, the drop in track temperature had a serious bearing on who won the Grand Prix, because the KTMs really struggled, and in the end both had problems whilst leading the sprint. Jack, you've got some more comments on that?
Yeah, track temperature, when it gets below 25 degrees, Michelin tell me, that is sort of the cut-off point where you want to really be looking at the soft front tyre, which is why we've seen some late changes to go with the soft front tyre. Tried to get a word as exactly who's on what, but there was a flurry of late changes across the board, so when the tyre warmers come off, we'll know for sure what everybody's running.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. I think it's going to get progressively cooler over the next few days here in Valencia. It looks particularly chilly, unfortunately, for the early part of our first battle of 2026 at the Tuesday test here, which so many of us are staying around to bring you live and exclusive coverage of. Unfortunately, it might be a rather quiet start to proceedings on Tuesday, because it does look like, as we're getting close to our winter break. We know we're getting close to the winter because I walked past Aprilia's hospitality last night. They've got a Christmas tree in Aprilia's hospitality. Great stuff. Fabio Di Gianantonio then, third front row start of the campaign. Alongside him, Alex Marquez, second on the grid. Marco Bezzecchi, though, first Aprilia rider in history to secure back-to-back poles. Can he finish our final sprint of the campaign with a gold medal around his neck?